Welcome to the Restricted Handling Podcast. This is what's been going on in China in the past 24 hours. We're kicking things off with China and their export numbers. If you were with us yesterday, you'll remember we talked about China's trade dynamics with the US. Well, here's an update. Despite the ongoing tariff battle, China's exports surged by an eye-popping 21.8% in the first 2 months of 2026. This is more than triple what economists were predicting. While this is impressive, the caveat is that exports to the US are still in decline, though at a slower pace than last year. US-bound exports were down by 11%, which is an improvement, but still shows the impact of the trade wars. So China is continuing to diversify its trade routes, especially focusing on Southeast Asia and Europe, as it builds momentum despite those tariffs. Even though US exports are still a challenge, China's broader economic engine is running at full tilt. Don't expect China to let up on these efforts anytime soon. They're positioning themselves for long-term growth, tariffs be damned. Switching gears a bit, let's talk about China's Middle East interests, which are heating up more than ever. We touched on this a couple of days ago, but with the situation in the Strait of Hormuz getting more tense, it's worth revisiting. China's investments in the region have topped $89 billion, and with the Iran-Israel conflict blocking shipping lanes, China is facing some serious supply chain headaches. About half of China's oil comes from the Middle East, including a significant chunk from Iran. With the Strait of Hormuz at a standstill, China's in a precarious spot, trying to balance their huge economic interests with a desire to keep diplomatic relations in check. They've been calling for peace and stability, but with these disruptions continuing, it's clear China has more at stake than they're letting on. They're not going to sit back and watch their investments go up in smoke, but they're also not rushing in with military might. For now, it's all about managing their interests and hoping the situation settles down. Moving from the Middle East to the Taiwan Strait, China's naval presence continues to grow. Remember those Type 055 destroyers we talked about before? Well, there's a bit of an update here too. Now, Dongguan and Anqing have joined the fleet, bringing the total number of these next-gen warships to 10. These ships are packing long-range missile systems, powerful radar, and all the military tech needed to make China's military presence in the East China Sea even more formidable. With Taiwan constantly in the background of tensions, these destroyers are sending a clear message. China is ready to project power, not just in Taiwan's direction, but across the Indo-Pacific region. The PLA Navy continues to be a major player here, and those ships, they're going to be critical for whatever comes next in the region. On the intelligence front, China's been ramping up its surveillance game. Now, we've mentioned this before with China's Liaowang 1, the world's largest intelligence vessel. But here's a key update. It's now actively patrolling the Strait of Hormuz. Officially, it's tracking satellites, but we all know it's also keeping a very close eye on military activities in the region. The ship can track up to 1,200 targets, missiles, aircraft, you name it, and it's got Type 055 destroyers backing it up, just in case things get interesting. China is playing this smart. They might be staying neutral publicly in the Iran-Israel conflict, but they're definitely gathering intelligence and staying well-informed. This ship, and the tech it carries, is a perfect example of China's growing surveillance capabilities. It's all about monitoring and, when necessary, influencing global dynamics from the shadows. Now, let's take a quick detour to Russia. A lot of the talk around Russia-China relations has revolved around this idea of a tight-knit alliance, especially when it comes to pushing back against US-led global influence. But as the Iran crisis unfolds, we're seeing the cracks. Russia has been pushing for a more aggressive stance on condemning US-Israel actions, while China has maintained a more measured approach, calling for peace and not getting too involved. It's almost like watching a supergroup fall apart before they even hit the stage. Russia's looking for a fight, while China's doing everything it can to stay out of it. This divergence is playing out on the global stage, and it's clear that the Russia-China axis isn't as solid as it might have seemed in the past. In the midst of all this, India's been walking a fine line. As the current BRICS chair, India's been trying to avoid taking sides in the global power struggles. But that doesn't mean they're not keeping a very close eye on China's every move. Particularly in the South China Sea, India's been bolstering its military capabilities, knowing that China's aggression in the region could eventually come knocking on their door. India's also been strengthening its position as a regional power, avoiding confrontation, but making sure it's prepared for whatever China might throw its way. Speaking of espionage, there's been some juicy developments out of Australia. A businessman named Alexander Shergo is currently on trial after allegedly providing China's Ministry of State Security with sensitive reports on lithium supply chains and, wait for it, AUKUS and the Quad Alliance. Now, Shergo claims it was all open source info, but the fact remains, this is a classic case of spy versus spy stuff that keeps the intelligence agencies busy. China's been denying everything, but you can bet they're not exactly sitting on their hands when it comes to gathering intel. Australia, for its part, has ramped up counterintelligence efforts. This is just one chapter in the ongoing high-stakes game of spycraft that seems to never stop. And last but not least, China's Ministry of State Security has issued new rules for its engineers, researchers, and anyone in defense sectors to be extra cautious with state secrets. Why? Because foreign intelligence agencies are always on the lookout for leaks, and the stakes are high. This is part of a broader strategy to shore up China's internal security, especially as tensions with the West continue to escalate. They're tightening the screws, knowing that any slip-up could have global consequences. Thanks for listening and being part of the RH community. Please take a moment to leave a 5-star review. If you want to see some changes, email us at info@restrictedhandling.com. We also publish a daily written intel brief on Substack, where you'll find even deeper coverage of Russia and China, along with insights on Iran, the Middle East, and the DPRK.